Welcome back to the TKO Show. Today I'm just going to be talking about the NFL awards since there are no games on this week. Basically how this is going to go is I'm going to tell you all the candidates. Then I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win and who I think should win. So, nonetheless, starting off with Coach of the Year. So the candidates are Dan Campbell from the Detroit Lions, John Harbaugh from the Baltimore Ravens, DeMeco Ryans from the Texans, Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers, and Kevin Stefanski from the Cleveland Browns. Who I think is going to win is either Dan Campbell or John Harbaugh, who, honestly, those are both great candidates. Who I think is going to win is either Dan Campbell or who I think should win is either Dan Campbell or DeMeco Ryans. Before I started this up and I was looking into this a little bit more, my immediate thought was Dan Campbell should win this. And then I saw DeMeco Ryans as I was listing off the candidates. DeMeco Ryans should 100% win this. They had 3 wins last year. Then they had an amazing draft and brought in Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud and made the playoffs and won a playoff game. You have to give him Coach of the Year for that. Now, I think Dan Campbell will probably win it over John Harbaugh because those are the most likely candidates for this. Kyle Shanahan, he's done this before. I don't think he's going to win Coach of the Year. And I hear a lot of people saying Kevin Stefanski, or however you pronounce his name, is going to win it. I don't think he will, honestly. There's not much from him that I've seen this year that actually makes me think that he will be Coach of the Year. So I think it's really between Campbell and Harbaugh. I think Campbell's probably going to win it, even though I think DeMeco Ryans should 100% win this. Moving on. Comeback Player of the Year. I'm honestly just going to glaze over this because it really doesn't matter. We all know Damar Hamlin's winning this one. Even though that the candidates are Joe Flacco, Damar Hamlin, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, Tua Tagovailoa. Damar Hamlin's obviously going to win this. He died on the field and still played the next season. Come on now. You have to give it to him. Even though he really didn't play that much, I'm pretty sure he only was in for like 10 plays this season, and he was on the field last year in a crucial game. I don't know why. Going into that game, no one really knew who he was outside of Buffalo Bills fans, and was really just like a second, third, basically borderline practice squad player, and dude died on the field. Yeah, you kind of have to give it to him, even though I think Joe Flacco should win the award because he played for the Browns this season and actually played well for them. And coming in after basically every team discarding him, saying that he's too old, he led the Browns to the playoffs and played well in the playoffs with them. But obviously you do have to give it to the player who literally died on the field, so it's going to Damar Hamlin. Next up is Defensive Rookie of the Year. The candidates are Will Anderson from the Texans, Jalen Carter from the Eagles, Joey Porter Jr. from the Steelers, Kobe Turner from the Rams, and Devon Witherspoon from the Seahawks. Honestly, I think this boils down to 2 players. Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. Those, in my opinion, are the 2 players on this team who I actually heard about throughout the year. And I heard about Devon Witherspoon, and I watched Devon Witherspoon. He's really good, and I think he's going to be a great cornerback in this league. I just don't think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he isn't at that point that Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are at this point, but I think he will next season. I think he will be able to take that jump next season and be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, but I just think Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are by far the 2 best are basically the two best players on this list. So you have to give it to one of them. I've been seeing a lot that it's going to be Jalen Carter. I honestly don't really agree with that. I think it should be Will Anderson. Looking at Will Anderson's stats throughout the season, he had 45 tackles, 7 sacks, 5 tackles for losses, and 3 pass deflections. Yeah, that's good. Looking at Jalen Carter's, though, he had 33 tackles, 6 sacks, only 8 tackles for yards, and no pass deflections. He had, let me find him again. He had 2 forced fumbles, one fumble recovery. And going back to Will Anderson for his, he didn't have anything with fumbles. Honestly, I still think it should be Will Anderson. He was on a terrible Texans team and basically willed that defense to help out C.J. Stroud in making the playoffs. I definitely think that he should be. But the main reasons why I don't think it should be Jalen Carter is because, yeah, that Eagles defense was good, but you have to remember, they struggled to start off the season. They weren't great. And Jalen Carter's not even the best player on that defense. Which I understand when you have on a great defense, yeah, you're not going to be the best player, but Will Anderson is the best player on that Texans defense. I think that should just automatically give you the Rookie of the Year or an award for defensive player. If you are the best player on your team as a rookie, you should definitely be Defensive Player of the Year. So I think it will be Jalen Carter, but I think Will Anderson should get it. Moving on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think this really boils down to 2 candidates, but I'll still read off the list to you. It's Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, C.J. Stroud. Yeah, this really just boils down to Puka Nacua and C.J. Stroud, because Sam Laporta, I think he should be on this conversation, but he won't be, unfortunately. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't play enough, and Bijan Robinson got screwed by Arthur Smith. So that leaves Puka Nacua and C.J. Stroud. Both had record-breaking seasons. C.J. Stroud being the youngest quarterback to lead a team to a playoff win, and I believe to the playoffs as well. And Puka Nacua just breaking every single record he could. Just playing absolutely phenomenal while Cooper Kupp was hurt. And basically still playing well while Cooper Kupp was back and still setting records. Come on now. I understand they're probably going to give it to C.J. Stroud because we saw this race in, I believe it was 2018 or whatever year. It was Justin Herbert's Justin Jefferson, where they were both basically tied and both deserved it, but they gave it to the quarterback because you always have to give it to the quarterback. I think that's bullshit. Give it to the better player, and I think that's Puka Nacua. I think Puka Nacua should win this award, but I know they're going to give it to C.J. Stroud because he is a quarterback. Moving on to Defensive Player of the Year. This one's kind of a tough one, but I will rate off the candidates real quick. DaRon Bland from the Cowboys, Max Crosby from the Raiders, Myles Garrett from the Browns, Micah Parsons from the Cowboys, and TJ Watt from the Steelers. Very, very close race. This one's hard. The one that I can just exclude right now is DaRon Bland. I don't think he had an incredible season. Yeah, he was great for the Cowboys, but out of these players, you can automatically eliminate him because the other 4, by far better players and had a better season than DaRon Bland. But after that, I think you can eliminate TJ Watt. Yeah, he had a great season. I think he will be a dark horse candidate, but I don't think he's going to win it. Max Crosby, I think he should win it. I don't think he will. So that basically leaves Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. I think Myles Garrett will win it because he propelled that Browns defense to be one of the best in the league, and he is the main reason that the Browns defense was as good as it was this season. So I think it will be Myles Garrett, but I think it should be either Maxx Crosby or Micah Parsons. Maxx Crosby willed that Raiders defense to where it was. Without Maxx Crosby, that Raiders defense is basically a high school JV team. But with him, it's phenomenal. It's a great defense. He puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that creates a lot of opportunities for that secondary to bat the ball away or intercept it. It creates a lot of he creates a lot of opportunities for his secondary, and I think that is what a Defensive Player of the Year should be. And same for Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was absolutely phenomenal. Now, the Cowboys have a better defense than the Raiders do, and it's not just Micah Parsons, because as you can tell by looking at this list of candidates, they have two candidates in this, with DaRon Bland and Micah Parsons. But Micah Parsons is also very talented and very good. He's a great run stopper, multi-talented player, can also stop the pass if he needs to, but primarily a run stopper, and just absolutely demolishing quarterbacks and just being able to be everywhere at once. And I think that deserves Micah Parsons an award, but I think it will be Myles Garrett, and I think it should be Maxx Crosby, though. So, yeah, that's my Defensive Player of the Year. Next is the Offensive Player of the Year. Now, this heavily ties into MVP, and I'm actually going to talk about that for a second. Why the fuck do we have an Offensive Player of the Year if we have an MVP? Because isn't the MVP the best player? Or, sorry, the best quarterback, I guess? That's basically the reason why we have this award. Don't put running backs or receivers or literally anyone else in the MVP conversation if you have an Offensive Player of the Year and a Defensive Player of the Year. Just make the MVP a quarterback award. Just come out and say it's a quarterback award because you always give it to quarterbacks. Might as well just be the best quarterback award. But nonetheless, Offensive Player of the Year. The candidates are Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott. I think this will be Christian McCaffrey, and I think he should be the Offensive Player of the Year. He had a tremendous season with... This is playoff stats. Christian McCaffrey had 1,400 yards, or 14,500 yards. Wow, I can't fucking talk. Christian McCaffrey had 1,459 yards with 272 carries. Basically having a great season, only 2 fumbles, had 14 touchdowns this season, playing absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, you have to give it to him. You have to give it to him. There's no one on this list that I could actually see winning it. Lamar Jackson's probably winning, or I'll talk about Lamar Jackson in a minute when I get to MVP. But Tyreek Hill, I think he is also a dark horse in this. He had a tremendous season. It was looking like he was going to set a new single-season receiving yard record early on in this season, and then he just kind of fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened. I kind of stopped watching Dolphins games after they put 70 up in a game. That's kind of when I stopped watching them because it was kind of just getting repetitive at that point. But, yeah, out of those, it's definitely going to be Christian McCaffrey, but I think Tyreek Hill is also a dark horse in that. But it's definitely going to be McCaffrey, and I think he should win it as well. Next award is MVP. I already talked about this a little bit, but I'll talk about it again. But the candidates are Josh Allen from the Bills, Lamar Jackson from the Ravens, Christian McCaffrey from the Niners, Dak Prescott from the Cowboys, and Brock Purdy from the Niners. Christian McCaffrey should win the MVP award because he was by far better than the other 4 candidates. But I can see why you give it to Brock Purdy because Christian McCaffrey is more of a receiving back, and Brock Purdy got him the ball. But those were mostly on check down, so you have to give it to Christian McCaffrey if you're going to give it to Brock Purdy for that reason. Not saying that Brock Purdy is bad at all. He's a great quarterback, and I think there should be zero reason for him to getting all the hate that he has right now. And Dak Prescott, I don't think he deserves it. Josh Allen had too many interceptions. And that really boils it down to Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson will get it. I think he'll get his second MVP. He had a great season this year. Led his team to the AFC wild card round. Kind of played a little shitty against the Rams, the Chiefs, but we all know Lamar Jackson has a tendency to choke in the playoffs. So, he did have a good season, though, and it's mostly based on regular season. And if we look at his stats, he had 307 completions with 3,678 yards and 24 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. He took 37 sacks. That's mostly his offensive line's fault. And I guess with Lamar Jackson, it's not entirely his offensive line's fault. It is still a big part of it, but Lamar Jackson has the legs to run, and he usually escapes the pocket and gets sacked trying to run. So, yeah, that's where the 37 sacks come from. But nonetheless, he is having a great season, or had a great season. I guess he's eliminated from the playoffs. But I think it should still be Christian McCaffrey, but I think it will be Lamar Jackson. But yeah, with that, that's all I have for you today. See you next time. Peace.